Hi, everybody. I am Barbara Usack. I'm one of the organizers for Mr. Simon's Work Search Buddy Network Staying Current and Relevant in Today's Marketplace series. So as you know, today Dan's going to be doing the tips and tricks for non-designers. Dan's presentation guru, who creates multimedia PowerPoint, Apple Keynote, and Google Slide presentations that entertain and motivate audiences into action. They feature high-end design, advanced animation, video, and audio assets, hyperlink navigation, user-friendly, and repaired/debug templates, as well as precise formatting. So we're asking that you hold your questions until afterwards. And Dan, we're ready to be dazzled.
Okay. You see my screen? Okay, I don't hear you, but okay. Okay, very good. So PowerPoint tips and tricks for non-designers. How to avoid death by PowerPoint to entertain, intrigue, and motivate your audience. Please make a mental note of the gear image that you see in faded white in the top and bottom corners. It serves as a kind of logo for this presentation, even though the presentation doesn't really have a logo. And it's also a theme that will be repeated in interesting ways throughout the presentation to brand the presentation and give it a cohesive look. So don't take notes. And because you want to entertain your audience, not overtax their brain, because PowerPoint should be the PowerPoints, not a textbook, because your passion for your subject should shine with entertaining visuals to support your message. Don't read your slides, captivate, because you can promise an audience a printed leave behind, which I will do, and I will provide a way for you to retain these tools in a practical, hands-on way at the end of this presentation. Be entertained, relax, don't take notes. If you want to keep your audience engaged, not bored, this should be your approach. So PowerPoint 1995, this is what not to do. This is what we did back in the day that was really boring, boilerplate template. And even if you are in a company where you're a little bit structured, there's still ways to break the mold, maybe not as dramatically as I'm going to do today, but there's still ways, and I'll show you that. So this is what not to do. And I'm reading these to you, but this is an example of what not to do. Yes, even bad and dull presentations being given in the present day are a bit more evolved than this, perhaps, but not by much. Perhaps there's a lame colored banner or footer with a logo sitting there like a dead fish, but it's still death by PowerPoint, that sad little precious picture. Yeah, you've got your precious postage stamp picture in the corner and lots of black text crammed into a white page, boring and unpleasant to look at. I'll put most of what you want to say in the slide notes and let your passion and stimulating visuals tell the story, which is what I will do in subsequent slides, not doing it here. This is what not to do. You think what you have to say is more important than how your presentation looks? Think again. The bar has been raised in the digital era. If you don't look good, then you don't look good. Do you want to look at this slide? I want to take a nap. So the answer is, what to do? The answer is, go bold. Question. Are the opening credits of a movie a white screen with black text? Answer, no. You'd go blind. You never see a movie with a white screen and black text. You'd lose your mind. So darker backgrounds. For dramatic impact, try a darker background with light type. This is especially effective when presenting on a large screen to a big audience. Now I know what some of you might be thinking, oh, the print won't look good, but you create a leave behind that's a print version. But when you're trying to wow your audience, you don't want it to be black text on white page. It's so boring and hard to look at, and people just look away. And darker backgrounds with texture, even better, give your dark background a texture to create a more dynamic look than a flat color. So that makes it pop even more. Watermark images are a light background with dark text that can be effective too when you have a watermark behind it. So basically what's going on here is a full resolution image, and a trick, a semi-transparent white box will do nicely for this effect. So I didn't try to source an image and an image bank that was faded back like this. And I didn't even do work in Photoshop to make this happen. Simple PowerPoint thing. I'm going to exit the show just to show you. So here I am. Here I am. This is a white box. So basically, it's a full resolution image with a white box. Boom! Very quickly, you created something that is very professional looking, and it doesn't require, advanced graphic knowledge. And it's certainly more interesting if you remember that postage stamp picture in the back, that was up in the corner. Now it takes up the whole page. It's so much more impactful, and it's not death by PowerPoint. It's like, wow, what am I looking at? And so, to get beautiful, large, no-cost, royalty-free images like you see here, go to www.unsplash.com. Don't write that down. It'll be in the leave behind, but it's also going to be in the chat as well. So make photos black and white. So you've got this perfect image, but you want it to be black and white. How? Make sure the image is selected. Right-click on the image and select Format Picture on the shortcut menu. And again, this will be in the notes, so don't worry about remembering it. Click on the picture icon and click Recolor and choose the black and white option. I'm just going to show you that really quick, how simple it is. So Format Picture, and then we go to Picture Color, and then we go to Recolor, black and white, boom. So we've now made that image black and white. So and you don't have to source a black and white image. You don't have to make it black and white in Photoshop. I mean, certainly if you want to do that, that's fine. But if you don't have that skill, you can do it right here in PowerPoint, which is really good. So black and white photos present as shades of color, as shades of black and white instead of color. Here we have a duotone, which is shades of blue and white. This can be a very nice dramatic effect for your presentation. If you don't have Photoshop skills, you can still create the, sorry, jumped ahead. If you don't have Photoshop skills, you can still create the same effect. Place a PowerPoint semi-transparent colored box on top of a black and white photo. So we already know how to do the black and white photos, and now you don't even know how to do duotones in Photoshop. This can be a very dramatic effect, like if you've got like a monocolored presentation, but you still want to have imagery, and you don't want to have a riot of color with all the images. You can render them all duotones or shades of blue and white, or orange and white, or whatever color your presentation. So here, just exiting presentation. Sorry, to show you really quickly. That's a semi-transparent blue box on top of a black and white image. And there you've got your duotone, which is really, really nice. So moving right along. Okay, question. Must titles always be in this position in a PowerPoint presentation? No, and I'm going to demonstrate that for you soon. Must images always be a precious postage stamp size photo in the corner? No. So like I showed you before, wow, you've got this big, beautiful image in the background, which is so much more impactful and doesn't look PowerPointy. It looks really interesting, like you're looking at something much better, like maybe a video presentation. Must we be limited to standard PowerPoint bullets? You know that black dot on the edge of to the left of all of the bullets. It's so boring. Why not have so no, you don't have to do that. Why not have some really interesting custom bullets? So here, if you remember, I talked about the gear on the front page, leveraging the gear again to become the bullets, and suddenly it becomes this integrated, much more interesting looking thing. Oh, I've seen that before. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same family here. It makes visual sense to me. Okay. So alternate layouts. So, let's try placing a title on the right and an image on the left, like a magazine layout. Why does PowerPoint have to be titles on the top and bullets underneath, and then, maybe a picture under that? Why not have images on the left, text on the right? Just mix things up and make it more interesting. And here we have a kind of variation of the same thing, like a split screen. but instead of having the title, white against black or whatever color it is, how about the title in a colored field? And what I've done here is what's known as knockout type. So kind of like the title looks like it's etched into the color. And the way you do that is the font color is basically the same color as the background. So, so this is, and also you see the gears in the far left, again, trying to bring back that logo, that design element to make the presentation look like it's all one thing. And how about no graphic bullet icon? You see, like here, I introduced the graphic icons for the bullets, but how about none? Like, we can break the rules and you don't have to have bullets. If anything tells you this is a PowerPoint presentation, it's when you have those bullet points in front of your text. And granted, we're making more interesting bullet points, but how about no bullet points? Just like having space between lines of text, that's kind of your bullet points, but it doesn't scream PowerPoint. You don't have to have bullet points. So you can actually get away from bullet points. It's okay, I promise. Okay. So here's another thing that you can do, semi-transparent colors to accent your slides. It kind of creates the illusion of depth, and it just makes the slide more interesting. And you'll notice that I'm using colors that are similar to colors that have been used already. I'm not going to put purple in there. That green is the same green as in that image, and also as on the cover slide. Orange didn't work for the left because it was a little bit too harsh, but it's still kind of sort of the same family. I made it yellow for that colored field on the left. Okay, so here again, you have a semi-transparent dark box on a brightly colored image. So I'm just putting that out there. So you can't read your text. That's why I have it. But it also creates like this mood. Like you see this photograph and it's kind of faded back, not in the same way as a white, semi-transparent white, but semi-transparent dark. And it's really great thing to do in order to make your text pop. So, and also like as far as your titles go, what's often seen is like a title with no color accent at all, or the title is at the top and it's in a giant colored bar. How about like a little colored bar, just like a little accent over there? That's something more like you'd see in the magazine layout, something so much more interesting than your typical boring standard PowerPoint. Why not do something like that? And then semi-transparent icons lend depth to flat-looking presentations. So again, I'm using that. I'm using the logo as a design element, and I'm also creating layers. And when you add that to the semi-transparent box sitting on top of it, like you've got all these layers going on, and suddenly you're not looking at this very flat, boring PowerPoint slide. You're looking at something that's really dense and really interesting, something that you'd expect maybe to see more in a video. Question: is it possible to turn rectangular images into more interesting shapes? Yes. So here we have, this was originally a square image and I made it oval. Now I didn't go out and try to source an oval image. There's a trick in PowerPoint that will make the image ovular. That's not a word. We'll make it oval. So the change shape button. So I'm going to show you how that's done. So the change shape button in PowerPoint will change the shape of images for you. Make sure your image is selected, obviously. Click the change button on your toolbar. There you go, right there. And if that button is not on your toolbar, make sure you put it there. And then select the oval shape, and voila, it happens. So, and I just showed you how that would happen. It would automatically flip to that shape once you go through those steps. You've got this boring rectangular image, and suddenly you're making it oval, and it just like makes the slide so much more interesting. So here, colors pop more with black. Like let's say you have a very interesting black and white image. can make a colorful image on top of it pop even more. And as you can see, I did an irregular shape. Instead of a rectangle, I chose a parallelogram from the list of options that you can change a rectangular shape into. And what I find also interesting here is that, like, if your topic, let's say, well, in this case, the topic is pottery, and I want to really call attention to pottery, I've got this giant black and white image that's a real extreme close-up of pottery. And then I've got another image that's color and not quite so up close. And then it kind of calls attention to both. And it just gives your topic a lot of visual interest. When you're talking your topic to your audience, you want to really engage them, and you want to make them think about what they're looking at as much as you want them to hear what you're saying. So that can help you. Large iconography can give emphasis to your subject. And also, as you can see, small icons are used for alternative bullets. So instead of the gear, I'm using the shape that was on the cover slide, which was the paint roller. I went to, and a great source for icons is iconfinder.com. I went to iconfinder.com and I found a paint roller icon, and I used that for my bullets instead of, boring PowerPoint bullets. Ordinarily, I wouldn't change up the, unless I had very separate sections, ordinarily I wouldn't change up the bullets quite so much, but I wanted to illustrate this point. So large or small icons can really, really speak to your audience and say something really bold and make people think about what they're looking at, not just what they're listening to you say. So silhouettes, remove the background of an image for greater impact. So in this image, these lovely two people were in this like rec room, and there was all this like visual noise behind them. And if I put that as a big chunk on this page, it wouldn't have the same impact as making a silhouette around them. If you don't know Photoshop how to do that, then hire someone at Fiverr.com. Costs you all of $5 most of the time. There are some primitive tools on Windows without Photoshop to do it, both in PowerPoint and other ones. I don't find them very effective, but it could work for you. It kind of works on very simple images. It works not quite so well on more complicated images. I just use Photoshop. I don't really have any need to explore those, but I have heard that I think Paint for Windows might have some ability to do that, etc. But you want it done quick and well, I would say, I would say hire someone at Fiverr.com. Okay, question. True or false? Adding audio and video clips to PowerPoint is hard. You must be a multimedia genius. False. So. Easy it is from these instructions to insert video and audio. This slide is a silent video with an audio track that I added to it, both inserted. You need to do some manipulation in the animated timeline, but merely inserting clips is extremely simple. And if you need help with that, do a search on YouTube for instructions on timeline, of getting video and audio to start. A lot of people will want to have the video start on click so that they're in control of it. It doesn't get away from them, but sometimes you want it to start automatically. Okay, so, and you'll also note that there is text on top of the video. A lot of people believe that you can't put text on top of a video, but you absolutely can. And with regard to the Space Odyssey theme, you want to use all of your videos and images and audio clips should be public domain. And the Space Odyssey theme is actually entitled Thus Spoke Zarathustra by Strauss, written in 1896. So it is definitely public domain. I wouldn't want anyone to think I'm using something that isn't. So here, the video here is very light. You wouldn't know that, though, because I placed a semi-transparent screen over the video to make the text pop. The previous video was very dark, so it was very easy to do that. But here, the video is very light, so I did a semi-transparent screen, and that's not something you can do in Photoshop because this is a video. So here's where a PowerPoint easy peasy trick is like really essential. A great resource for no cost, royalty-free, high quality videos is this link right here. You'll get it at the end. And I just want to demonstrate, I go out of the presentation, that this is a semi-transparent box. Now you see you couldn't read that text without that box, so it's pretty essential. All right, so now listen carefully because there is audio on this slide. So an animated GIF is an animated picture, not a movie. It's a much smaller file size than a movie, so the size of the presentation will become unmanageable. If you've got a movie in a presentation, it could be very hard to send regular email, but the size of this image is often no bigger than a regular image, so that's why sometimes animated GIFs are very, very helpful. And I also paired it with an audio clip, which is nice. It kind of gives a feel. And here you see a couple of resources that I use in my work, and I suggest that you try them out for animated pictures, animated GIFs, and that'll be in the handout at the end as well. So here are 7 powerful resources that you can, I went over them, through the presentation. It'll be in the handout. Here are a few more. And then finally, the 7th resource, which is me. So there you have it.
You saved the best for last.
Dan, that was excellent. That was so good. Thank you so much. And it was just so great. Before you go into Q&A, because everyone, we want to open it up to your questions. I know I have at least one question. Dan, there was something, and it was fine because we could hear you. There was something going on with your audio. I don't know if we were moving forward and backwards. So just for the Q&A, just so you're aware. Maybe just be aware of that. So I didn't see any questions in the chat, but does anyone have any questions or comments for Dan?
Yeah, or is it so easy for everyone that you guys all know all these tips and tricks already?
No, I can see it is not so easy as you see. Put together right colors, graphic, and so on. But my question was, because I IT support, so would my presentation be less artistic, but more points, kind of thing? What I noticed that I do like bullet. I understand that now you can change it, but at the same time, I don't like a lot of pictures on when you have like 100 slides. It's too much. So that's why I like these filters, right? That you can put box on the top and be not so bright. But what would you suggest for like more structured, like more, I don't know.
More formal?
More formal thing, it's, this is great, but it's too artistic for me.
Right. Well, I mean, part of what I was going for here is like when you have to do a pitch to someone and you don't want it to look like typical PowerPoint, and you're not doing boilerplate presentations for a corporate kind of organization where they're very, very structured. However, there are still some takeaways in here that you could still use. In other words, like instead of having a picture that's a tiny little thing, you know, precious little postage stamp picture in a corner, why not make like the right side of your page a big image? The left side could still be your standard place where the titles usually are and the bullets usually are, but then your image, you know, you could kind of cut it in half where like the left half is your typically where you'd see your bullets and your title, and the right half could be a much bigger, impactful image. That's one way of kind of the best of both worlds, if you say, if you're really stuck with something that's very corporate, but nonetheless you want to break out of the mold a little bit and do something a little bit more interesting.
Dan, this is Stuart. I have a question for you. All the years I've been using PowerPoint, it's usually pretty much limited to kind of the standard bar across the top where you put your title, and then the box below that where you can put your bulleted points or your thought that you want to put in. And I'm not really familiar. I mean, all of what we were seeing were full screen images. There were no the usual standard PowerPoint separators that show the different parts. When you do this, how are you creating the image on a full page without any demarcations, if you will, of the standard PowerPoint?
Well, that's the whole point. I'm not doing standard PowerPoint. I don't want to do standard PowerPoint. Standard PowerPoint bores people to death. It doesn't interest anyone. You don't really want to look at it.
Now, I'm not talking about standard PowerPoint in that sense. What I'm talking about is the image that's on the screen.
Right.
And maybe others know this. The images that you were showing on the screen don't look like PowerPoint. They don't look like the standard templates that PowerPoint gives you.
Right, because I'm
to
not
do this. What are you using instead of those standards?
Are you doing background image? Can you show us then, so that it they expand onto the full slide, right?
Sure. And I will show that. But before I do that, I want to say I'm not using PowerPoint standard templates, because PowerPoint standard templates, you know, that insist that your title be here and your, you know, graphics be here or whatever. Right. I want to think outside the box and do something more interesting. So I don't do that. When I create,
you're starting with a blank canvas then.
Exactly.
But what is that? Where do I find the blank canvas? I don't know I don't know where.
Okay. I will show you.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's how do you start to build, I think, is the question, right?
Okay. All right. So here, you know, let's say is a blank oh wait, you're seeing my screen, right?
Can you start a new presentation? Just file new, that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what we usually see when we open up.
Sure. Now, what I did was, you know, I'm not using a placeholder for an image. I'm going insert pictures, this device, and let me go to. So that's wait, hold on.
Doesn't matter.
So you're still using the PowerPoint application?
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. So,
and I think part of this, oh, go ahead, sorry.
So
that unsplash.com has photos, yes, right? For free, yes, like high res.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
the high res photo, sure. That's a good point, Marla.
Right. So, and that is in the leave behind that I'm going to give. So I inserted a full page image, like let's say this is going to be my title slide, and I move that to the back, and then I could, I don't know, call my presentation Go Bold. And let's move this around. Century Gothic.
You also, I remember, Dan explained me the difference between two types of fonts. Can you a little bit touch upon this?
Sure. So this is what you call a non-serif font. And then if you want to do a serif font, a very typical one is Times New Roman. So you see serif font is these little curly cues. And then Century Gothic is one where you don't have those. So, like Arial versus Times is probably, but Arial's kind of boring. That's why I did that. I don't use placeholders for images because PowerPoint bends over backwards to make it user-friendly, but I actually find it less user-friendly because it tries to keep you in a certain mold, and I find that very frustrating. I don't want to be bound by that. However, you can go into your slide master and make sure that your titles are styled the way you want them and in the position where you want them. So I often kind of work backwards. I'll put text where I want it, exactly how I want it to be, style it the way I want it, and then copy that styling to the master. So that way you can kind of have your cake and eat it too, make it look the way you want, and then go to the master and make the master adhere to that. So
can you just quickly show how you can make this slide a master
How
slide?
did you get to the
absolutely. So, okay, so here this is the pickup object style. I'm gonna go to the master, and then I like that style, so I'm gonna make it that, so it adhered to that style. And then I'm going back to the slide here, and I want, let me put my title there. So I want the position of that to be at 82 by 88. And then, so I'll go here and make sure the position is 0.82 by 0.88. I don't usually bother with this because I just go freestyle, but I know sometimes if I'm working with a client who I want the slide master to be, really on point, and if that's really important to them, then I'll go to this extreme. So let's see. All right. Let's make it left align. All right, so now we go back to the slide. All right, and now if we, okay, so, but I want, oh, that's why it happened. Okay, so one more thing, and then it'll be the way it was supposed to look. Okay, very good. All right.
So I'm now also in my PowerPoint, and I don't have this line that you are clicking on the small icons. How do I get this line which starts with the auto save words?
I'm not following. What?
Toolbar, the toolbar that has that icon for the slide master. How do you show that toolbar?
Okay, yeah. And again, I can put this in the lead behind. You see my toolbar up here. I have this set up in a very specific way so that I can go boom, 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 pick things, and I know where they are, exactly where they are, so I can fly through operations really quickly. And the standard toolbar doesn't come set up this way. And I mean, if your toolbar is set up a certain way where you're comfortable, keep doing it. But if you're missing certain tools that are going to be really important for you, I would recommend going and getting them.
So this is like your most frequently used shortcuts?
Exactly. So like everything, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
Where would we find the slide master if we don't have it on the toolbar?
Sure.
Is it under design or?
I will show you. So
Okay.
You see customize quick access toolbar, this pull down here, you go and then you click more commands. So at the end of your toolbar, this little down arrow, then you click more commands and then select all commands so you have the full list. And then you go and you find the tools that you need, and then you can add them to your list so that they appear on your bar up there. So yeah, that's how you standardize your tools.
So we have to, in the first place, we have to enable this quick access toolbar, right?
Right. And again, very simple. This is gonna be here on every toolbar, no matter what. Customize quick access toolbar. It's the very last icon at the end of your toolbar. And then more commands, so that's pretty intuitive. And then popular commands, let's choose all commands, and then you can go and find whatever tool it was that you were looking for, and you click on it and add to it, okay. And when I work at it, when I'm not working at my computer and I go somewhere else, I export it as I export my customizations, and then I can import it at another computer. So I have all the
Can I
tools.
quickly share my screen and ask you a question?
Sure, of course.
Here it says.
Oh, okay, I answered my own question.
You can
Under
see my
view,
You can see my PowerPoint, right? So
Yes, I can.
then you see I don't have this bar. How do I get it? Under view, Barbara?
no, he's showing you the shortcut, the long cut. If you go to view right there where you are,
Slide master, right?
yeah, there you can get to the slide master that way. But then, Dan, you can show her how to get the
How do
toolbar.
I get this
Okay,
quick?
I'll show it to you. You see where I'm pointing? Are you able to see where I'm pointing? I don't know.
No.
Probably not. Oh, okay, on the upper left corner, that red bar. Upper left. So that red bar across the top. All right, and now you see that little down right next to it. There's a little down arrow right next to it. There you go. Click on that, and then I would say select show below ribbon.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I will be able
Right.
to
I
add
find it a lot
add
easier.
icons. Okay.
Yeah. I find it a lot easier to see there. That's why I moved it down there. Right.
Okay. So you can grab the screen back. Thanks.
Yeah. So I'm getting perhaps maybe a little more dialed into to some details than I thought I would be, but I was just trying to show, like, if you already have an intermediate or even beginner knowledge of PowerPoint, but you want to make something that's really more interesting, yeah, you can do your boilerplate presentations where the text is always the same place and the bullets are always the same place and be very boring and put people to sleep. But if you want to do something that's really attention grabbing and interesting, this is a way to get around that and make it kind of more cinematic rather than just your typical thing that you'd see in 1995. And the thing is, now that we're in the digital age and you're competing with other people, if you don't, if you think that your content is going to be enough, it just isn't, because the bar has been raised. You don't look as good as other people. You'll be thought of as like you don't know as much. So it really helps to, up the game, raise your bar. And if that's too difficult for you, hire me, and I will help you do that.
So let me ask Matt, for example, as we just discussed with Matt, we do similar, we have similar purpose for our presentations normally. How much freedom, Matt, do you typically have in corporate environments with making your presentation colorful and not boring? How much freedom do you have for that?
It depends on the audience is the short answer. And I think Dan would recognize that as well. Sometimes you have to go with a certain, background or template. If it's particularly if it's something that's going to be incorporated with other presentations that you don't have any control over, that kind of limits your ability. Or if it's, something that's being put in front of a large, auditorium of people and such, you may be limited again by what you can do. The trade-off is when you have that autonomy, yeah, I'm able to go ahead and be fairly liberal with what I want to do, just know my audience and what I think will kind of catch their eye. So, there's a couple of factors that play in, but by and large, especially today's, with people looking for the digital edge, anything you can do where you're not kind of constrained, do it.
Okay.
So
I mean, I think the one trade-off I'll put on that is don't throw so much, I'll say, junk in there that it loses the value of the presentation. That's the other thing I've seen once or twice too. Not that I've done it so much, but I've seen other people try and do all the bells and whistles, right? Every color is every screen's a different, every page is a different color. They have sound on every page. They have graphics on every page. Now you start, saying, okay, clearly they're experimenting with PowerPoint. That doesn't work though either.
Right. I was showing you the broad range of what's possible, so I would definitely rein in certain things. I was just showing you everything that you could do.
Yeah, Dan, can I ask you kind of a question for, I think we have people here with different levels of experience and familiarity with PowerPoint.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say is a good starting point or place for people to start, I'll say, making their PowerPoints a little bit sharper? Because, doing it all at once doesn't necessarily come natural. You kind of have to, my experience, at least how I would learn, is you build on what you've done.
I mean, basically, I would say one of the good things that you can do is like if you see a presentation that you really like and you're able to somehow get a copy of it, try to emulate it, not really copy it, but emulate, see what they're doing. Like, why did you like it so much? And then if you figure out why you liked it so much and then you try to do something similar, it might help you develop a language where like, oh, this is going to be more interesting. So like, let's say you are trapped into sort of a, corporate template where it's titles on the top and bullets on the bottom. Like I was saying earlier, why not put like, instead of a small picture on the upper right corner or whatever, how about a large picture that fills the screen from top to bottom, not left to right, but top to bottom. And then you make the bullet points, instead of spanning the whole length of the page, like half the page. So you're kind of not breaking the rules, but at the same time, you're giving the audience something like, oh, a big, bold image, something to look at. Another thing that really helps, and I think you even mentioned this as well, is that you want to, I like to say that PowerPoint is the PowerPoints, not the whole novel. So what you can do is the text that's on the screen is not what you're going to say. The text on the screen is kind of like text bites, kind of a takeoff on sound bites. Like text bites are little sentence fragments or short sentences or short phrases that say what you want to say, but you dot all your I's and cross all your T's when you're saying it. So you flesh it out. Your passion for the topic comes to the fore rather than people reading off the screen. And if you do that, you pare down your text, make it text fragments or short sentences, have a big image on the page, it's still going to be more interesting than your typical PowerPoint, which is like tons of text that you read to people and a precious little postage stamp image is just stuck on because, oh, we should have an image there. If the image is big, like I said in the presentation, go bold. If the image is big, it makes people want to look at it. If it's this throwaway tiny image, it doesn't really add a whole lot of visual interest, and it just has that death by PowerPoint, like, oh God, another PowerPoint.
Mm-hmm.
So what I try to do is like create some kind of cinematic interest to it. And if you're like a startup or a business that's trying to get new clients and you're not constrained by a corporate, template, then it really makes sense to like break the mold and do something that's really worthy of the digital era. Because when you're competing with other people who are up to that and you're not doing that, it doesn't matter how smart you are, how great your ideas are, you look like you're behind the curve because you're not doing that as well. So that's kind of like what I was trying to show in the presentation.
I have another question, but I see Barbara's patiently holding her hand up.
Oh, I'm going to interject real quick, Barbara. Hang on one sec. We have about 1 more minute, so we probably have time for one more question.
Go ahead, Barbara.
Mine's just really quick. If you can.
Sorry, hold on. Sue, did you get your question answered? Sue had a question in the chat, and I just want to make sure it sounded like Dan addressed it. But was there anything missing from that, or?
Well, my challenge with PowerPoint is that there's so many options and so many things you do. And I just go with my normal, blue background, yellow things. And then after I get the content on, I say, okay, this is good. But Dan, what do you do when you start a project? Do you envision what it looks like, or do you play around until you find something that you like?
Sure. I mean, typically, I'm not the driver of content. I don't write it. Someone gives me an already written presentation, and they say to me, I know this is really dull. How do I present this in a really interesting way? So I think, how do I abstractly show what they're trying to say with imagery? Like there was one presentation that I was working on, and it was like about character recognition, and it was all this like verbiage about, computer stuff that I'll never understand in a million years and didn't care to, but it was about characters recognizing one another. So I found an image of 2 chubby, freckled, redheaded boys pointing at each other and laughing. And that was the image. And he also wanted something that was lighthearted, So I found that, and I used that for character recognition, and he loved it, So basically, you want to think about the content of the slide, what you're trying to say, and then try to find an image that says that. And then when you have your text on the screen, don't have a lot of text on the screen. Use your passion for the topic to speak to people. Don't read what's on the screen. Like, you know, a few words, like I said, like text bites, kind of like sound bites, a little niblets of words, short phrases, whatever. But you speak your passion about the topic, and your image also is, you know, a support image that makes it interesting. And then suddenly you no longer have this death by PowerPoint and being read to, and it's a really nothing really that I want to look at, and just a lot of words. And like after a few minutes, you lose your audience and they can't stay awake. So the whole
That makes perfect sense, because I was just thinking, like, some part of the PowerPoint process is, if you're doing your own, it's really hard to kind of see it from an audience perspective.
right.
And so sometimes I would do like a slide at the very end of something I took a picture of that you know, relates to the whole thing. But now, you know, you've given me an idea that I can fade it or
Right.
transparent window it throughout, or every now and then, to kind of remind people, hey, we're talking about this, instead
Right.
of sitting in a dark room, you know, taking a nap.
Exactly. And what I showed, like, you want, a lot of people think, oh, you know, I have text and I want an interesting image, but I can't have text on top of my image because then you won't be able to read the text, or it won't print right. And the thing is,
Right.
if you're presenting to a group of people and you don't want to put them asleep, put them to bed, you don't want to have a tiny image in the corner, because that's the only thing that fits. Get a full screen image, put it in the background, and then if the image happens to be really dark, then it's a no-brainer. You can type over it. But if the image is too light or too dark, you can put a semi-transparent PowerPoint box on top of it, and then text on top of that, so that the text pops and you've got something really interesting to look at. And this is not like, you know, rocket science crazy stuff I'm saying here. How difficult is it to get a full-size image, put it in the background, put a full-size semi-transparent colored PowerPoint box, put it on top of that, and put your text on top of that. It's, you know, it's very easy. You're not, I mean, a lot of times, especially like designers will like make that background in Photoshop and they'll get really crazy with it. And sometimes I'll do that as well. But other times I need it to be quick and dirty, or it's not even necessary to spend all that time, and I'll just do it really 1, 2, 3 in PowerPoint. So that semi-transparent box is golden, and it makes you look so professional, because there's something really cool about, like, you see an image and yet it's faded back. And so you get the idea of the whole image, but it's faded back, and then you can read text on top of it. It looks very interesting to me. Certainly a lot more interesting than a little picture pushed to the side and lots of text. And then again, to say, limit your text. Don't have too much text on your slide. A lot of people are very anxious. I got to get every last word on that slide. And you can do that in a leave behind version, but you don't have to do it when you're presenting to people. When you're presenting to people, put most of that verbiage in the presenter notes, and say and have it maybe animate automatically, so it just fills the screen, and then you say what you really would say. Maybe you have it memorized or you read it from presenter notes, but still you're not reading to people what is on the slide, because they can read and then they're bored. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Great.
That was good. Thanks.
Great.
I'm sure there's maybe
Good.
another
I'm just
question.
gonna-
Thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, you know what we're going to do is, it's 2:00. So for anyone who has to leave, we want to respect your time. We are going to be providing a link to the recording, and we'll also be providing a means, and we'll be communicating with everyone how you can get the leave behind pieces that Dan mentioned. So everyone will have access to that. We do want to allow this to go over and take time for questions. So Sue, if there were more questions, please feel free to ask. But I know Barbara Yusak, let's go to you. And then it looks like Anne Madu, you have a question as well. But Barbara, why don't you?
I don't know whether Matt had a question or not, or whether he was just being nice because I kept going like this. My question was quick. If you're stuck with a boilerplate with the company logo in the upper right-hand corner, then can you do a full screen image behind that logo? Is there a way to do that?
Yeah. One of the ways you can do that is if the background, like you go to the slide master, sometimes if you're lucky, the slide master, the company logo is a graphic that's sitting there, and then you could put an image behind it. Other times that's not the case, and when that's not the case, if you have that logo, if you have that as a separate graphic somewhere else, put your image on top of that and paste the logo on top of that in the exact same position, and that way you can kind of cheat and get that logo on top of the background image.
But if you made the image really transparent, you could easily see where to place the logo, and then you could take the transparency off if you
Very
needed
good.
to.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And thanks, Barbara. Yes to both counts. My quick question, I think, is for Dan is, is there some place, be it Microsoft or elsewhere on the web, where we can find, kind of me backtrack for a second. When I start a presentation, I've seen something that I've seen before. I start with something I've seen before, and I try to get my hands on it, like you suggested, to build off of that, so to speak, or modify from that. Is there a place, be it Microsoft or elsewhere, to get, I'll say, kind of that partially constructed presentation, so I can tune and tweak rather than having to build all the different layers on top of it myself?
Yeah, I mean, because I do things on my own, I don't really get things that are canned. I'm sure that if you do a Google search, you could probably find that. As far as tools to, like, let's say there's something you want to do, but you don't know how to do it. In my early days, I would, do a search on YouTube or in Google, and then I'd find a video or a tutorial on how to do it. So if you're determined, there's a way to figure it out. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there are companies that, I do know this, there are companies that sell prepackaged templates. But if you want to do, and if you're not concerned with doing your own original work, that's fine. I mean, I sell my services. If I'm using a canned template, then I'm not really, I'm being hired under false pretenses.
Yeah. I think some of us are in a different place than that, right? We're we're doing a one-time kind of thing for whatever business purpose or personal reason we have. Yeah.
Sure.
I have another question. I'm beginner. When I look at it, I have no idea how to do that, so I have to actually dig. I still stuck in white and black slides. But do you know any other free software, I don't know, that could have similar way to do but free, I don't know, Google Doc or something?
Well, Google Docs is kind of its own animal. I mean, I would say that you can, if you do a Google search for PowerPoint templates, I'm not sure that they're free, although you might just find some that are free, and then it'll already be pre-packaged for you. I find a lot of the times with those templates, and again, this may not be, your level or what you need to do, it may be irrelevant. For me, I don't like them because apart from the fact that I'm not designing it, it's all very PowerPoint. I don't want my presentations to look like your typical death by PowerPoint boilerplate template kind of presentations. I'm trying to think outside the box and make things look more cinematic and more interesting. But I'm sure you could find templates for free or maybe for a small fee if you did a Google search. And then, yeah, you'd have presentations with a little bit more color. It wouldn't necessarily be black and white. One of the nice things about prepackaged templates is that they're going to have colors that are complementary, and complementary colors are very nice to look at. You don't want to have fuchsia and green. You want to have colors that really fit with each other and are attractive. And that all by itself will up your game tremendously, even if you're doing, kind of boring text and not images really. Even just that will make you look better. Yeah, and certainly more interesting than black and white. So.
Okay, thank you.
I see Anne had a question. Anne, do you want to ask your question?
Yes, hi. Just quick question for you, and adding to what Matt was saying, I guess what I'm looking to do is if I wanted to create something like with added graphics, a video, I can follow some of the resources that you provided. But like you're saying, if you're looking like for like maybe a tutorial or something, you said to just go and, find out maybe the YouTube or something.
YouTube has amazing tutorials on PowerPoint on how to do things. Also, you could hire me, and I could teach you some basics. So you could do a Zoom session, and you could pick my brain. And I am. There's no question that's too dumb or whatever. I would show you in the most elemental way. Go as slow as you absolutely want to, and PowerPoint, it isn't rocket science. It's not really difficult. It's just that it can feel overwhelming because there's so many different things, different options. But basically, once you get used to it, it can become pretty user friendly. And again, what I was trying to show in the workshop is how to do it user friendly. Where to find free images that are beautiful and big screen.
Yes, I see that. The graphics, that's what I'm really interested in. Like you're saying, just staying away from that standard and creating something that has some type of, creativity with graphics. And that's what I'm looking for.
Right.
So thank you for this great, excellent presentation. I really loved it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And, if you want a leave behind version of this presentation, just email me on the screen there, dan@newmarkdigital.com, and I'll send you a PDF of this very workshop. So you have, you can see it. And I was saying, be entertained, don't take notes, because people get really anxious and then they're not enjoying the presentation because they're so anxious about writing down everything. That's the purpose of a leave behind. The leave behind is where you dot all your I's and cross all your T's, and you want people to be relaxed when they see your presentation, that they don't have to remember everything. You just want them to be entertained, and then you give them the nuts and bolts where they can go over it in depth. They get the book later, but they get the PowerPoints when they watch the show. They get entertainment.
All right, that's great. Dan, this was amazing. This was so good. I know I'm going to go back and watch the recording, and thank you everyone for staying on. We had great questions, and as we mentioned in the chat, we're going to be providing a link to the recording. We're going to, you can email Dan to get a copy of the slides, and we will also be providing a place where we're going to house the slides where you can also access them. So I'm going to share the screen real quickly, Natalie, if you